Roll call, please.
Mayor Goers,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Carter,
Here.
Councilmember Orr,
Here.
Councilmember Wilson,
Here.
Councilmember Woodall.
Excused.
Thank you.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. That wasn't me either. That wasn't me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That was true.
That was too much. Oh, that was too much.
That was really good.
Yeah, that's the shenanigans.
That's all three of them. That's hysterical. Public presentations. This is the time for persons who wish to address the council on any matter not on this agenda and over which the council has jurisdiction. As such, a dialogue with the council or staff is not allowed under the Ralph M. Brown Act. Items requiring council consideration, items requiring council actions not listed on this agenda may be placed on the next regular agenda for consideration if the council directs, unless a finding is made by at least 2/3 of the council that the item came up after the agenda was posted and is of urgency nature requiring immediate action. Please limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. Are there any?
Nothing else.
There's no one here, so we will close public comment. Move on to the consent calendar. Anyone want to remove an item from the consent calendar? No? No. Then is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Motion carries 4-0. Report staff and communications, city manager, page 16 in our, of the handout in our package.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes and members of the council. So yeah, there should be on your desk, the handout. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get it into the packet last week, but it is before you now. I did meet last week with some representatives of the county related to nitrous oxide ban. We did talk about this with the council about 6 months ago. So the county is working on kind of a regional standardized ordinance language that's nearing its completion now. And we expect to probably have something for the council's consideration around May of this year that also will be, it looks like it's going to be adopted by most, if not all, of the other cities in Humboldt County related to this particular issue. Also, an item I'm waiting for is a scope from our consultants who are helping with the solid waste franchise agreement with Recology CSG Consultants. Basically what we're seeing, the other cities who also have Recology and are in their contract negotiations are doing kind of a deep dive audit analysis of their agreements and the performance and whatnot that has occurred over the years. And some interesting and valuable information has been revealed in some of those audits. And I think it would be beneficial for Rio Dell to do such an additional audit. So that may be appearing at the next council meeting as well. I would also just like to state that in the police department report, there is a section related to the upcoming Public Safety Sunday on April 13th from 11 to 3 p.m. at McKinleyville High. Most of the law enforcement departments in Humboldt County, the fire departments and ambulance services will have vehicles, and there will be helicopters there. And it's open to the public and kids, and certainly will be recruitment opportunities there as well. The public gets an opportunity to kind of look at emergency services in Humboldt County, gets to check out the cars and that sort of thing. And again, that'll be at McKinleyville High on Sunday, April 13th from 11 to 3. So anybody interested in going to that certainly should make the sojourn north. In addition, we have construction underway with Wallen Construction on our major water line repair project. And so with this, because we're going to be touching on a lot of the streets throughout town, there will be traffic delays. There's going to be workers in the middle of the street, and we want to really encourage people to, drive responsibly, slowly through town, for residents to expect some disruption that will occur probably through the duration of the construction season here in Humboldt County all summer long. It'll be from, neighborhood to neighborhood and on the contractor's schedule. There will also be some slight water disruptions for areas that are under construction. So water might be shut off for a period of time and then re-engage, but that's part of when we replace infrastructure, just part of how that operates. There is no such thing as a citywide shutdown of the water system or anything like that. It's going to be really project focused and in specific areas for specific amounts of time. So we want to just encourage the public to have patience with this and understand that we're, getting this necessary work done to improve public services here in the city. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it back to the mayor and see if there's any other questions for staff.
And about the construction that's happening, very noisy and like super noisy. It was like, I thought it was the mill this morning, because there was this long sound that just would not go away.
Yeah.
So people should be aware of that too, that it isn't the mill, it's actually construction that's improving the water system. So,
Yeah, badly needed.
yeah. Mayor Booker?
No questions. I'm gonna point out my usual animal control. We have once again gone another 2 weeks with transporting 0 animals to Miranda's rescue. We didn't have any last time either. That makes our first full month of taking no cats, no dogs to Miranda's rescue. So just want to point that out because we're doing great. And then will people with water disruptions be notified, I'm assuming?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, awesome. That's it.
That was it.
Yeah, here you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ward? Councilmember Wilson?
Yeah, is this part of something first tonight or?
Yeah, so that'll be in the agenda item after the next one. So we'll pull it up on the screen as well.
So.
Other than that, I don't think I am.
Okay, thank you. So the not taking any animals to the shelter, is that because you had like, for example, 13 calls, or they just return to their owners or the people or?
We make a big effort to return animals to their owner if they can all be located. So a lot of that is the increase in people licensing their animals makes us very successful in doing that.
Mhm.
And then I think time of year also plays a part in the reduced animal calls.
Okay, because I've been noticing that people are walking like my street and walking around way more with animals. And so I've actually been walking my pup, and I just said yesterday, I was like, it has changed in Rio Dell. Because I was like, okay, there's certain places I could go and feel safe to walk my pup. But then for like leaving my house and going down to Wildwood was not one of those places, but now it does. And I think that's awesome that it has really, the control of the whole situation has gotten so much better. So I appreciate that. It is noticed
Yes.
and appreciated. Okay, then, there are no other questions, no emails, no hands raised regarding the staff report. Then we will close that and move on to presentations and update from the city engineer, GHD, page 18 in our packets.
So we're gonna take a second here to let Rosa get her permissions. Okay, and then I believe it is Rebecca Crowe was on there earlier, but I do not see her now.
Yeah, Kyle, I'm here.
All right, so Rebecca, I believe you should be able to screen the PowerPoint, or if you don't have the PowerPoint available, I can see if I can find it.
I just There we go. Let's see. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Then you're ready for me to go?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Let me see if I can move that little thing out of the way. Thank you, Council, for giving me the opportunity to present this evening. We are working regularly with city staff on a lot of projects. So things are going on in the background, all the time, but appreciate the opportunity to present in front of the council. We'll be touching base on some of the major components of the city and some different projects that we've been working on. So to start it out, practice this, there we go. We'll touch base on transportation projects. So one of the major projects that's been going on, and I'll have a couple pictures after this slide, is the Eel River Trail Project. So that's the pedestrian trail between Edwards Drive and Davis Street along the Eel River. Most major work items are complete, even with all the weather that we've had, and construction is anticipated to be complete by June of this year, which is the grant deadline. And again, in the next couple slides, I'll have some pictures. Second project is the Neighborhood Pedestrian Connectivity Project. This is a sidewalk infill project, and it includes Painter Street, Ireland Street, and Center Street. The project is on track to be put out to bid in May of this year, and then construction summer, fall of this year. A traffic study. So Rio Dell raised their hand at HCOG and said, hey, we'd like a little funding. They got a proposal. So W-Trans is currently conducting a study that will be reimbursed through HCOG. So that's ongoing. And then some potential future projects that the city's looking into are improvements at 2nd and Ogle, and then some improvements on Northwestern. Here's just a couple pictures of the Eel River Trail project. So the striping was completed just last week. There's a couple punch list items remaining. And again, the project is anticipated to be complete by the end of June 2025. So here's the new parking area, a portion of the new trail. Here's some new benches that eventually will have some additional art on them. So those are just, some pictures of that project ongoing. Are there any questions on transportation before I move on? Or I don't know if folks want me to just kind of run through everything and see if there's questions at the end.
Well, does anyone, I have a question I can ask
Sure.
you now. Sure, thank you. So are there going to be, my understanding is that there were going to be pathways along the trail so that you could get down to the river. Not like lots of them, but that was my understanding. Is that a true understanding, or am I just making things up in my own head? Just give me.
So if I could, on the north end of Davis Street, there is, the contractor kind of added sand and gravel to kind of aid in people moving off of the trail in that location. There was always, the rest of the trail length, there was never really very good trails, pre-existing trails out to the river. But at that focus point where the pavement ends and the Davis Street, that area had a bunch of pre-existing kind of natural paths. And so that's where that accessibility to the river is.
Okay, so, and that'll be the only one, the one at Davis.
Yeah,
Davis,
towards
yeah.
that end, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Go,
Thanks, Cal.
Go ahead, yeah, sure.
All right,
please.
there we go. With that, I'm going to move on to the water distribution system upgrade project. Kyle touched on this. This is really exciting to see this moving forward. This project's been in, the planning and different funding phases for a long time. So this project is funded through a state board clean water state revolving fund grant, just under $13 million. The notice to proceed was issued back in July of 2024. In that time, we've been coordinating with the contractor and also the state board on some items. Currently, we're in the final stretch for Caltrans coordination for the highway crossings before the encroachment permit can be issued. The way Caltrans works right now is essentially have to have your contractor on board before you can finalize those things. The selected contractor also had an alternative means for doing those crossings, which is saving the city some dollars in the big picture, but takes a little time in the near term to get those finalized. So that is that's going on. The submittal reviews have been ongoing. So just, the pipe materials, tank, things like that. Potholing activities started in March of this year. And the water line installation, I believe, is actually active, going on the ground finally. So they're out there and have started doing some work on that project. And yeah, like Kyle mentioned, the contractor will be going through different parts of the city. And as they go through, they'll have different effects on the communities or on the neighborhoods. Any questions on that project? That's a biggie.
No, I don't see any questions.
The next project that's a big one for the water system is the Eel River Crossing Pipeline Retrofit Project. As the city's aware, currently the city has a water line that goes through the southbound bridge here, and it's vulnerable to earthquakes and different things like that. And so we've been working with Cal OES and FEMA on funding to replace that pipeline. So the city had a grant application in for about $3.3 million. That's 75% reimbursable. The city has submitted a funding request to the state board for the 25% match. In addition, there's about $166,000 that's a grant management budget for the city that's fully reimbursable. Currently, where the project stands is that the 65% design is complete. It was submitted to FEMA. And right now we're playing a little bit of a waiting game on FEMA funding for the final design. And so even in sort of normal political times, I've seen the, FEMA take quite a while for these approvals. So anywhere between, 6 months to a year plus. These funds were allocated via Congress, so it is anticipated that they will eventually come through, but right now we're just waiting on them. And that's been pretty typical of this program, over the last 10 years that I've been working on it. There is some minor work that's going on in the background to keep this project going. Because the new pipeline is proposed to have a new crossing, underneath the river. There's some state lands commission permitting that's ongoing. So that's a small portion of work that's ongoing right now to at least keep that project. So when we get the next chunk of funding, it'll be ready to go. So not too much work, but the 65% design is complete. All the geotech is complete. And now we're just waiting on FEMA to give us the okay on the next chunk of funding. There's the two big water projects. I'm going to move on to wastewater. Holler if anybody wants me to stop.
Okay.
So on wastewater, this has been an ongoing project, the sanitary sewer evaluation study. This is a state board funded project. The city's been working the last couple of years to get an amendment to increase the level of design that was approved in fall of 2024. A second round of closed circuit TV pipeline inspection was completed in late 2024. So this graphic here shows where the city's been able to, essentially they send a little TV camera down into the pipes. We're able to see the condition of the pipes. Those pipes are also getting cleaned at the same time. So, to be able to make it through, those pipes are getting hydrojetted. So these red areas were completed in 2023, just after the earthquake, and then additional CCTV was completed in 2024. That data is now being analyzed, and we're developing inflow and infiltration reduction strategies. Also, there's a sewer model that is pretty much complete for the city. And we're looking to leverage that model to identify piping that may be undersized, that may be causing issues for the city. So the final result of this sanitary sewer evaluation study, once we have the inflow and infiltration reduction strategies done, we'll put together a report, and then we'll be able to move on to designing the actual upgrades for the highest priority chunks of the city's the sewer collection system. one of the more pressing components of the city's collection system. I'm sure one that folks are very familiar with, excuse me, is the Painter line. So you can see here on this graphic here at the end of Painter Street is an area where the city has historically had numerous sanitary sewer overflows. And so GHD has been working closely with Randy and Sunshine on a strategy to upgrade these pipes to reduce and in most cases, eliminate the flows from this area. It's really tricky in the design in that we need to balance both the capacity in the winter when you're getting, I&I in parts of the system and, your pump stations are, essentially pumping down to here. You have a lot of flow, but in the summer, when you're not getting I&I in the other parts of the systems, the flows go really low. So we're trying to balance, the capacity of the pipe to be able to handle the high flows, but in the low flow periods, you want a minimum velocity to make sure that the pipes can clean those out. So currently right now, our design includes a new vault in this area to capture 2 incoming sewer lines and move those manholes a little bit back from the current property. So to give a little bit more space to the city, we're looking at dual 15-inch pipelines for majority of the length. That gives the city the ability, in higher flows, you can use both pipelines, and then in lower flows, there'll be a little overflow that blocks it so that you're only using one of those 15-inch pipelines so you can meet your velocity requirements. Currently, we're working with, Randy and Sunshine on how to get an upsized pipe from where the end of this line is, and I've got my my legend over it, like through the treatment plant. As you can imagine, the treatment plant has a lot of old infrastructure there and different pipelines. So making sure that we can successfully get a larger pipe through there. Let's see, the city's coordinating with landowners for some revised easement alignments. You can see here the pipe goes through some private property here. So just making sure we're being conscientious of those property owners and how we best navigate that pipeline through their property. And then the state board, we're anticipating construction funding for this summer of 2025. And our goal is to get a design ready or available to bid by the beginning of May. Trying to get a solution in place prior to the next rainy season. Are there questions on either of the 2 wastewater projects?
No, we're good. Thank you.
All right, excellent. I just wanted to give a little GIS support update. So this is something that, where, time and funding has allowed and different projects have allowed. We've been supporting the city in building up your geographic information system. As time marches on and you have changeover in staff and things like that, the more information you can capture in a system that's easily accessible, it becomes more accurate over time. That provides a benefit to the city. So GHD has guided the city. So the city was able to hire a GIS intern in 2023, 2024. So we were able to leverage that person to add information to the system. We provided information on best practices for using the GPS device to collect information, guidance for web-based data management. The ortho imagery that was captured in 2023 has been added to the city's web maps. We've captured some stormwater data for select segments of the city as part of different projects, and then drafted a strategy to guide the city's approach to GIS. So this is something that that the city's building on over time and collecting more information. So the better the information that goes into it, the more robust the information is coming out of it. And the goal is to create a long-term value for the city for understanding what's in the ground. And the last project that I wanted to touch on, and I think you'll touch on this more in the next presentation, is earthquake engineering support. So over the last 2 years or so, GHD's worked with the city to develop scopes and prepare damage assessment reports that will lead to potential funding. So GHD has been involved in 5 of those projects. We're currently working right now with Kyle and have been asked to provide a a scope for design to move forward on the contact basin. So the chlorine contact basin has some cracks. The baffles have had some issues. The connecting pipes have had some leaks. So a project to repair that. And then also moving forward on a design to address some of the damage to the piping associated with the infiltration gallery and the, the pumping of water up to the treatment plant. That ends my updates, and I'm open to any other questions. And if not, again, really appreciate folks' time letting us give an update on what we're talking about with staff on a regular basis.
Thank you, Rebecca. We really appreciate you coming and doing the update for us. Are there any questions? Any questions for Rebecca?
I'm just gonna say, again, thank you for coming. It's always nice to see projects that move out of the study and analysis phase that seems to take forever and actually start working on them and even getting some completed. So I do very much look forward to seeing some of these infrastructure related things worked on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rebecca. Is she presenting anything else like next?
No.
Okay, well, thank you, Rebecca, again, and thanks for being here and giving us the update.
So it's my pleasure. I'm going to listen into the next item. Take care.
Okay, you too. Thank you. So we will close. Were there any emails or hand raised? Okay. Then we will close that item and move on to special call. Status update on the remaining 2022 earthquake disaster recovery projects, page 29 in our packets. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Arns and members of the council. Just a brief second while we try to get the PowerPoint started here. Okay, so the council should also have this in paper on your desk. I wanted to just bring this back to the council to kind of recap where we're at with the earthquake and recovery process and for related to our infrastructure. And also talk about kind of the next steps and hopefully the final steps with some of our last remaining projects. On the sheet before you is kind of our initial spreadsheet that lists kind of everything related to the earthquake and the specific damages. You'll notice just to the left of each name is our 4 arrows. And I want to go through each one and just chat a little bit about them because this is really, it's good news. So for example, the Painter Street sidewalk at the intersection with Ireland is a problem. That particular piece of infrastructure is going to be addressed via the pedestrian connectivity project that Rebecca mentioned at the last agenda item. And so a lot of the damages that the city received, particularly to our infrastructure, were areas where we knew that we needed to replace that infrastructure anyways, right? And so particularly with the water system and the grant that we're now engaging in the actual construction of, had a lot of the damages to the city were already pre-identified and had, projects in the queue to address them. And, obviously we wish that, the projects had been completed before the earthquake, because we would not have lost water, the damage, the staff wouldn't have been as stressed out. We would have, been able to handle that, in a much better fashion. So, so the Painter Street sidewalk is an example of funding that we received through HCOG to install, sidewalks in that area. And that section will be completed. So there's really, at this point, no risk to the city's funds associated with that. Moving down to the second arrow, Highway 101 sewer pipes. Again, Rebecca mentioned the SSES the evaluation there. It's a possibility that we may be looking at CDAA for some repairs, but it's always very difficult with sewer system to identify, the damage because the facilities are underground. It's very expensive to do cammering. The third arrow down, Highway 101 water pipes. This is one of the big ticket, cost centers associated with the water pipe, or excuse me, associated with the earthquake. That project is underway with Walland, and again, 100% grant covered, so no risk to the city. Damaged collection system piping, again, SSES. There actually should be 5 arrows. The next one down below the last arrow, it says damaged distribution system. So again, that comes down to our water CIP and the grant that we received from the state to conduct these projects. So the good news is on this particular sheet, these are items that are basically going to be taken off and aren't really going to be a disaster consideration. All right. So our next sheet is the completed earthquake projects that the state has approved, and we've already kind of worked through these. Obviously, a lot of these are some of the immediate response issues, so bottled water, toilets, washing stations, showers, $126,000, fully reimbursed from the state of California. The California Disaster Assistance Act, CDAA, covers the city for 75% of the damages related to the earthquake. Now, the city is compliant with various state laws, and so under the state programs, we are eligible for 100% recovery, but it's not 100% cost recovery, but it's not guaranteed, and it's on a project by project basis after they are completed. So going down this particular list, contract dumpsters for debris removal, $73,000 was spent on debris removal, 100% covered. Generator fuel, contract backer trucks for sewer overflows during the earthquake, 100% covered. Our costs related to the local assistance center and aid distribution, 100% covered. Building inspection costs, 100% covered. Emergency fixes to broken water lines at various locations, and I think it was primarily Birch Street. You'll see some recent construction work there in the road. That has been covered, and we have applied for the 25% match. So we received the baseline 75% coverage, but there is that remaining 25%. And the letter has been, and the documents have been submitted to request the full 100% reimbursement. And then our hypochlorite generator down at the courtyard, which produces stuff that cleans the water, is 100% covered. So these are projects, basically they're done. There's just some miscellaneous remaining paperwork with the Birch Street repairs to get our 100% coverage. Again, in my opinion, Rio Dell is the poster child for a community that should be receiving 100% coverage because we have no FEMA assistance. And this is a disadvantaged community, especially in the relative scope of the state of California. And then this next sheet is kind of the crux of what I wanted to just discuss with the council. These are the remaining projects for us to complete, and our issue related to this is that, again, as I mentioned, we're guaranteed 75% cost match. However, the 25% is not guaranteed, is on a project by project basis for approval. But again, it's not guaranteed. So it creates a bit of a financial planning mess because the city has to plan worst case scenario. That's what we do. That's how we avoid problems. And so there is some related risk that none of these projects are approved for the 25% match. Okay. So just, you would look specifically at the far right column, it's called 25% remainder. And that column could be called risk to the city. And so it is substantial, but with, our engineering reports and the strategy moving forward, it has been whittled down from those initial damage estimates that, basically would be impossible for the city to cover, even with a 75% match. We now have it at a figure that we believe is attainable with the existing city funds. The council's well aware that we have had to do rate adjustments, utility rate adjustments in water and wastewater to meet the costs of operating the facilities, but also doing capital improvements. And so those funds have accrued funding for projects. And unfortunately, just the earthquake is going to be determining where and what projects we are doing. But they're all projects that need to get done. So, so we have really 5 really important ones. The final project at the bottom, the road repairs to locations, is step that we're working on right now. There's little exposure to the city related to those at this time. But the top 5 are the ones where we start to get into significant dollar values and exposure to the city. So breaking it down, all of the different projects, with wastewater, it's potentially about a $600,000 exposure to the fund. With water, it's about a $900,000 exposure. And then towards the bottom of the sheet, you'll see that this is where our starting capital fund balances were for 24-25. And certainly we've done some projects in between there. And so that number will be adjusted because there's also revenue coming in, but also expenditures going out. But roughly these are the amounts in these funds for capital projects. So when you compare them to the group, the 25% remainder above, it is theoretically, if we receive 0 additional assistance from the state, it is consumable by the city to kind of essentially eat those costs. But it means we won't be able to work on some of the forward leaning projects that need to also get done. So there will be just a delay in terms of that. The earthquake has kind of prioritized these repairs and kind of upset some of the future projects. But I just wanted to make the council very aware of this, that my recommendation, and initially looking at this, and it was like we were going to have to do like maybe at most 2 projects at a time, because it's also a cash flow issue. These are expensive. The city doesn't necessarily have cash in the bank to cover these checks going out for contractors and whatnot. So we have to get temporary short-term lines of credit so that when we get the reimbursements, we can then pay off that debt and maintain cash flow so that we can, clear payroll and all the other expenses that the city has. So there is, some level of risk associated with this strategy to basically go after all of these all at once. But if you pick it off and you say, we'll do 2 at a time, the cost for construction just only ever goes up. Like some people are saying 8 to 10% a year is kind of expected. So it's more cost beneficial that we get these projects cleared and done out of the way. We could not do them any sooner than next year, because this year we already have a cash flow issue related to doing the water CIP. Again, the city has to put up the money first and then get reimbursed. So, and we've adjusted to figure out how to make that happen, but we couldn't do another 5 projects at the same time this year. So the idea here is just the strategy I'm recommending is that we go ahead and proceed with the next steps for all of these projects to gear them up for construction in 2026. And that the council is fully aware that there is a risk that the 25% is not covered by the state of California and Rio Dell eats it. But it is a manageable, it appears to be a manageable cost at this point in time. If the worst case scenario happens, but I do have to inform the council of the worst case scenario. I think I think we have a very, very good case to say why we need the 25% covered. And we've met all the state thresholds and all that to justify that, but there is absolutely a risk associated with this. So really with that, there is a summary sheet on the next page, but I think it's probably too many spreadsheets, but with that, I'm happy to try to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you, city manager, and thank you for explaining it for me anyway, it was very clear and case well made. So I don't really have any questions. I'm on to the implementation because, like I said, you made the case and it makes sense, and with the understanding of the risk, absolutely. But I will, Richard, any questions?
No questions. Once again, just thank you. This all makes sense to me. I want to thank all of city staff, because this would give me a headache like every single day. So keeping all these numbers straight and working on all this, and then staying on top of the state to make sure that we're, in compliance with the things that make us eligible for these grants, and then staying on top of them to, where's the money? So I appreciate all the work that's gone into that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilson?
Yeah, so we don't have this in our reserves or anything to.
We have it in our reserves, but it will deplete we have the funding available in the capital funds for water and wastewater, but it will, particularly for water, essentially deplete the capital reserve. And then we would be basically starting from zero or close to.
Worst case scenario.
Applying for that 25%.
Absolutely, but we can only apply after the project is completed.
So we have to pay for it upfront.
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing, you said there's the option to go out for loans to do this. Are there low interest loans out there?
Yeah, so it's just basically a cash flow management issue. If we have, an invoice come in from a contractor for, $1 million, and then, the city has to fork up that cash somewhere. And then the reimbursement process, while the state is much, much better than FEMA, which is basically derelict and getting worse, and it's so we would submit as soon as we possibly could to receive that $1 million back from the state for reimbursement. But that's not, the timelines and schedules can always, if there's a lot of questions, the contractor's paperwork isn't right, there can be huge delays. So we basically have to have, and there's been agenda items that the council's approved for the Wallen project to allow us to take out a line of credit to finance those cash flow issues. Eventually, particularly the Wallen project, 100% covered, so the money's coming. It's just a question of the time.
So maybe this is redundant, but the 75% side, we get that money, we don't have to come up with that to cover the whole 100%.
No, we have to come up with that.
We have to
And then the 75% is also a reimbursement. So
we have to do the 100%.
initially. So the city pays for it. We then make application as invoices come in, but they've already been paid. And then we get reimbursed. And then, but the problem is with CDAA, once we hit the 75%, they cut it off. So,
I got it.
yeah.
No, I got it now. Thank you.
Is that all your?
That's it.
Okay. Councilmember Orr? Then. Hand raised, emails? Yep. Okay. Then I will ask for a motion to approve, let me get back to page 49. to authorize the staff to proceed with implementation of the remaining projects as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion carries 4-0. Now we'll move on to our final item, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 413-2025, establishing chapter 8.45 of Title 8 of the Rio Dell Municipal Code, fire severity zone map for the city of Rio Dell. Page 35 in our packet.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. I'm just gonna do a quick mic check to see if we have Kevin on the line. And I do not see him, but I think we can proceed with this item, and if there are questions, so this is another one of these ordinances where there are two bites at the apple. And so if I if there are questions that I'm not able to answer, we will bring answers back to the next meeting. But essentially, what we're recommending is to allow staff to introduce the ordinance, to open a public hearing to receive any public input and deliberate, and then continue to the second reading on April 15, 2025. CAL FIRE has been releasing maps identifying the level of fire hazard severity that cities across the state face as part of efforts to prepare for and prevent future wildfires. The purpose of the maps is to identify areas in the state as moderate, high, or very high fire hazard severity zones based on consistent statewide criteria and based on the severity of fire hazard that is expected to prevail in those areas. Moderate, high, and very high fire hazard severity zones are based on fuel loading, slope, fire weather, and other relevant factors, including areas where winds have been identified by the Office of the State Fire Marshal as a major cause of wildfire spread. According to CAL FIRE, the maps evaluate hazard or the physical conditions that create the likelihood for an expected fire behavior over a 30 to 50 year period, which doesn't account for efforts to prevent wildfires such as home hardening. So fire hazard severity zone maps are utilized for building standards and various property development standards, as well as planning for future development. Local agencies are required to make the recommended maps available for public review and comment within 30 days of receipt. This ensures that community members have an opportunity to engage with and provide feedback on the fire hazard severity designations. The city made the map available on the city's website on the day it was released, February 24th, 2025, for review and public comment. And cities are required to adopt the maps within 120 days of their release. So the adoption of fire hazard severity zone maps is not subject to CEQA. There's very little discretion that we have in terms of this mapping process. For example, the city cannot contest a designation that is high. It can only raise a fire hazard threshold. So that makes it a little bit difficult for us. In this particular circumstance, we're kind of just basically fed this map and kind of forced to adopt it. So there's been a lot of insurance considerations related to it. I think they're not, insurance companies are not supposed to be using the maps for, identifying their insurance rates or whatnot, but the information is publicly available, publicly funded, and certainly could play a role in that. But mostly from just a strictly technical standpoint, the maps would influence, building standards, building codes in those zones. So when you go to the map on at the very last page of your packet, you will see that you know, there's kind of a ring around Rio Dell that is the second highest tier. So again, remember, they go from moderate or non-existent, moderate, high, and then, you know, severe. And so we don't have any of the super high level designations in Rio Dell, but we do have some sections that are considered to be in a high fire severity area. And, you know, again, this map, you know, CAL FIRE would need to speak to how it was really formulated, but it appears to be a very generalized algorithmic program that was used, computer modeling to kind of identify some of the higher fire hazard threat areas in the state. Again, all these maps are publicly available on the website and also at CAL FIRE's website as well. So it certainly does, you know, have an impact on potential future development. Most of the high fire hazard areas are already kind of developed out. And most likely wouldn't have, you know, terribly significant impact on new development. But you will notice areas like the River Bar itself is considered a high fire hazard severity map, and even just north of town in the unincorporated area, a cornfield would be considered high fire hazard threat. So, so a lot of the map, I think, in the details of it, is questionable, highly questionable. But again, what you know, staff is recommending is that the council deliberate, open the public comment hearing, see if there's any public comment, close that public comment, deliberate and continue the meeting to our next regularly scheduled.
Thank you, city manager. Councilmember Orr?
No.
Councilmember Wilson?
I know it doesn't, I don't understand, it's not a debatable topic from what, Councilmember Carter reported on last meeting. But just for the record, would we be able to submit a letter of objection to?
I think you can submit whatever you want. I
You can
just
submit whatever you want.
Yeah, pretty much. They were very clear that there is no changing it.
What?
Only for the worst. I mean, you can
Well,
make
yeah,
it-
you can make it worse, so then it's like, well, if we send the letter, do they just say we're extremely high? I don't know. Not really, but. Yeah, you can make it worse, but you can't make it better, and there's no appeals or negotiation.
Or, that's all I know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem?
No point in, you know, opinions or revisions or questions, because it is what it is, so, no.
And I'm in the same position as you.
Yeah, there's nothing we can do.
I want to screen, but up the board.
Yeah.
Are there any hands raised or emails? Guys have any questions? No. Okay, then, I'm asking for a motion to continue this to the second reading, on our April 15th meeting.
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Motion carries 4-0. Now we move on to council reports and communications. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I had a REDIC meeting last week. It was basically just an audit report, and the audit was good, so good for REDIC. And actually, it's good for the whole county that REDIC's audit was good. The Chamber of Commerce is meeting this Friday at noon in the Town of Scotia offices. There's a lot on the agenda. They're getting ready to name the Wildwood Days Parade, and they're putting on a Cinco de Mayo event, and there's, so, you know, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, come on by. We also have a beautification, walkability and pride committee meeting this Friday at council chambers at 1:30 p.m. And I will be attending the fire commissioners meeting and the school board meeting on April 10th, and that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Orr?
Not a whole lot, went to the HCOG meeting, we have a new director up there, a local, so even better, and looks like business is normal.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilson?
I went to RCA meeting and they're moving their location from, they've been in the lower portion of the Warfinger building, if you're familiar with that. Now they're decided that they need the upper, they're gonna go to the upper section, and then for one meet the next meeting, they're gonna be at the Jefferson School over on B Street. Where they met years, some years ago. Anyway, kind of as it's going, and they're just mainly going through the routine stuff, nothing really exciting. They do have the one power plant that the solar one that they were purchasing the power from down south is online, and now they're working on getting the battery project through that, so they'll have the backup to go with it. Other than that, that's all.
Thank you. And, well, first, thank you, Supervisor Bushnell for tuning in to us. My update, I went to a LAFCO meeting, and really they were discussing water coming into the water situation with Samoa and the water district, and it was very, very detailed. I don't have those details, but it was very interesting, I must say. I went to the Cal City's EQ policy meeting in Burbank on Friday, and we talked, all of the bills and the legislation that is going through. I have HTA tomorrow morning, and one of the bills that's going through, we talked about on Friday was AB 262, which I told everyone about before, and it's the one where the state, the bill is going through is that the state will create a fund to help people or communities that fall below the FEMA threshold and get no help from the feds. And so hopefully in the amendment to have individuals also be able to be helped. The council person who brought the bill is amenable to that. And so I've been invited to go on Monday, April 7th, which is this coming Monday, to testify to the assembly, the state assembly, because the bill is basically the impetus of it was the earthquake in Rio Dell. And so basically I've been invited to tell the story and put, basically the human side of it before the state and the committee rather. And so that's, I'll be doing that on Monday of this coming week. And I thought they invited you, Kyle, but I never.
Oh, yeah, no, they only allow,
one?
two speakers,
Okay.
so, yeah.
Okay, so I will be working with Cal Cities to make sure that I get all the points in my 2 minutes, and I will be practicing my 2 minutes with the clock so that I can get everything out that I need to get out, and then and then if there's clarification, they will ask questions, and that's how you kind of get a little bit more in there. So that is this coming Monday, and then I have a seismic commission meeting on Thursday of that same week, the 10th. And I think that is all for me. Yeah, so.
Thank you for doing that. You're really standing up for people who need it most.
Right, we're trying.
Yeah.
So, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, and a second, I'm gonna just.
Is it?
yank that back up again. Meeting adjourned until April 15th.
We have such a fun.
I know.